fast to forever. There's all kinds of family. We chose this one. This is episode 415, Hobbs and Shaw, lap 15. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too, and this episode is brought to you by Shaw Floors. Embrace every moment in your home, the big celebrations, the everyday joys, and everything in between with Shaw Floors.
Well, shout out to Shaw Floors. That's hard to say. Shout out to Shaw Floors.
Oh, that is a tongue twister, yeah.
People don't know that I bungled the intro and I had to re-record it and I cut out the first thing. But that one, I nailed. It just didn't sound right. It has a weird mouthfeel. But anyway, with us tonight to talk about Hobbs and Shaw, I heard him on John's podcast, 1999, The Podcast. He is the author of 1999, The Year Low Culture Conquered America. We have Ross Banish. Hello, Ross.
Hey, guys. Good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So 1999, the first Fast and Furious is not out yet, but the Racer X article, I was thinking about this today, the Racer X article that it was based on had been out. Obviously, the LA racing scene is percolating, but even though, okay, here's a big question off the bat. No wrong answers. Do you think Fast and Furious is low culture? And how would you define low culture? The title of your book, The Year Low Culture Conquered America.
So the way I define low culture is it's like the pop culture that's the most derided in its era. So it's like the shit that, takes the most heat. Like Jerry Springer's rated the worst show of all time by TV Guide.
Okay.
Insane Clown Posse is rated the worst band of all time by Blender Magazine, obviously. Porn. But so it's in the eye of the beholder, but it's basically like pop culture that's considered trashy. And I could see people dunking on Fast and the Furious and thinking it's low culture, but I wouldn't define it as such. I don't think it's like it has some zaniness, but I don't think it's trashy enough to make my bar.
It feels like, based on the reaction, maybe we're just more aware to it now because we have the podcast now, but it feels like people dunk on it more now than they ever have before, when like objectively the production value has never been higher, just because like everyone as a people are better at making movies than they were and the budgets are bigger. But now they're just like, another one of these. So like weirdly,
they do the same thing to Marvel too.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, but yeah, I'm glad that it's not low culture, although it's not necessarily a negative, because I know that you guys talked about a wrestling documentary on 1999 on the podcast, which is very interesting. I never heard of that documentary before. It was a cool episode, so check that out. It came out a couple months ago, I think.
Yeah, I like all this like low culture stuff that I write about too. So yeah, definitely not a negative to be considered low culture in my view. Like pro wrestling, that's something that people considered trashy for decades, but like I love that. It's one of my favorite forms of pop culture when I was a kid. But like Fast and the Furious just seems like an action movie series, Like I wouldn't say like Mission Impossible is low culture or the Transformers movies, Yeah,
there's just a lot of them. I guess there's a distinction, right? Like you can look down on them for other reasons, but not necessarily because they are.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say even if something's formulaic, I don't think that makes it necessarily low culture.
So what is your history? I know that I have a little bit of context here, but what is your history with the Fast and Furious? How many of these have you seen? Did you see any of them in theaters? I know that this one, I'm pretty sure, was new to you, but what was your history with the franchise before we recruited you for this episode?
I'm a novice, so I've just seen the first 3 movies.
Okay.
So I haven't seen anything in like almost 20 years, because Tokyo Drift was made a long time ago. And I didn't see any of them in theaters, but the first movie I do remember having the most anticipation among my friend group, in that we got it on DVD, and that was like when we newly had a PS2. So
nice.
When you got something on DVD, it like meant something.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really cool. We never had heard that one before, but like the advent of having a PS2 and getting DVDs is like a good like timeline. Like it's like a perfect intersection of like right what you were doing at that age, right?
And that's like right when that movie hit is what it all happened.
Wait, Joe, in the first movie, is that one racer he's playing a PS1 or is he playing he's playing a PS1, right? So the PS2 is not.
I think he's playing a PS1 in the car. I think it is. But now you have me questioning it.
I mean, I
think it's Gran Turismo 2, which was only on
the original one.
PS1.
Okay.
3 came out with PS2.
Also, Ross,
right?
You don't know this, but Joe and I met playing Halo 2 in online matchmaking. And Joe, I don't know if it was early 2005 or late 2004, but we have passed our 20-year anniversary, so happy anniversary to you.
Happy anniversary.
Cheers, long time ago, just randomly match made together, and the rest is history.
Yep. Wow, were you guys into Red and Blue?
I watched Red vs. Blue a lot.
Blue, yeah.
We made our own. I don't know, Joe, if you made it, but like it was just like, oh, we can do this too, and then like it wasn't good, but like it felt accessible.
I don't remember. I think maybe I was never big into Red vs. Blue, but I played so much fucking Halo. Yeah. Like I was just on that game forever, all day. So
Ross, I don't know if you're able to do this if you haven't seen them in 20 years, but do you remember if you can rank the first three, or if you just remember I know you were excited for the first one, but do you have a favorite of the first three? Is there one? Did you like the three? Did you not like the three? Where do you stand with those with the beginning trilogy?
So I would say the first one is the best of the beginning trilogy, and that's common with a lot of movie series where the first one, like the concept is the most novel at that point, and it's something you hadn't really seen before, so it sticks in your brain a little bit. Tokyo Drift, the the effects and just it starts to be a little more outlandish at that point compared to the first two, just like the stuff they're doing.
Just wait, brother.
Oh yeah,
just wait.
I saw that even with this movie. I was like, is this the same franchise that I watched 20 years ago?
Well, yes and no in very specific ways, but yes, keep going.
Like the action scenes were just really cool, even though they were becoming more and more unrealistic. Like the first one, it was like, oh, this is just like street racing. Theoretically, most of this stuff I think could happen. Tokyo Drift, you're starting to do some crazy stuff. The second one, I love the soundtrack, but the movie itself, I don't remember a whole lot of it. So I'd put it at the end of those just because it didn't stick with me.
And then we'll go into more detail about this movie in particular as, through the rest of the episode. But how does this compare to the first? I mean, again, I know you just said, like, is this the same thing? Like, it's so much different. But, like, is it at all comparable, or is it so far removed from, like, your memories of those first three? It's hard to apples and oranges them.
It doesn't seem at all like the same type of movie because, like I said, I watched those first ones, and I haven't been following it as it became a cultural juggernaut. Like, all these movies that have made hundreds of millions of dollars, I haven't seen. It's a way different experience, but I liked it still. I don't think I liked it as much as the first Fast and the Furious, but I think I enjoyed it more than I remember myself enjoying like Too Fast, Too Furious.
Okay. So the quick little background here in terms of Ross joining the show is that I mentioned, listening to that episode, I told John that I liked it, and John said, I think Ross would be a good guest for Too Fast, I'll introduce you to. And he introduced it as saying Ross had only seen the third one. And he's like, actually, I've seen the first three. I just have not. I'm not just the third, but whatever. And I was like, oh well. So knowing we were sort of toward the end of the lap, I'm like, which ones could we sort of pop them on? Because like, for the most part, Ross, like as you can kind of imagine, like all these movies aiming to make $1 billion, they rarely do anymore. They all kind of have to be made so that it could be somebody's first movie in the franchise. This one being a spin-off, like, you don't have the background of who these characters are within the context of the wider world, but it's as good of an entry point as you can get toward the end, so it kind of makes sense to have you here. That being said, this movie did fairly well at the box office. Almost immediately after being released, they were like, Hobbs Shaw 2, going to be out in 2 years, and we've never gotten it.
And they were trying to plan like a lineup Marvel of like, you get a Hobbs and Shaw, then you get a main installment, a Hobbs and Shaw, and a main installment.
And part of it was because it came out in 2019, and COVID was the next year, and then there was the writer's strikes and everything like that, and like it just sort of like things fell apart that way. But the farther we go down the road, because there's been 2 main installment movies since then, and another one theoretically maybe in 2 years, who knows. They don't address this. Like, this is sort of like a redheaded stepchild where it's in the universe but not really canon, and so it's very strange. So the fact that you said it's hard to sort of reconcile this as the same franchise, like, it is, but it also isn't. So just keep that in mind with whatever is swimming around in your head.
I have a philosophical question, and it's actually like perfect for Ross considering what he just said. And do both of you think this movie would have been better or worse received by both audience and like critics if it was not tied to the Fast and the Furious? If this was just a summer blockbuster with The Rock and Statham, and it's this pretty much the exact same movie, just different names. It's not like related to the Fast and the Furious. Is that a better product, a worse product? And would it have been as like, because even generally for Fast and the Furious fans, like a lot of times when we asked you to like rank your movies, people will exclude this from the list, saying that this is not a main installment movie and that like it doesn't count.
Probably better critically received because it wouldn't have the baggage of the franchise. So as just like a summer blockbuster, I think it's completely fine.
Right?
It wouldn't be like super or like new or anything, but like it's just as good as any like like Transformer or GI Joe or whatever, you know.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. It feels like so because I just come off of seeing Formula One this weekend, right? And that movie was a lot of fun, and it feels like a summer blockbuster. I think this movie has a lot of the same like just summer blockbuster feel, and like I was really like curious if like is there a world that the Fast and Furious moniker at the end held them back, or did it boost them for a movie that's just a summer blockbuster? Like which
But you
way
said critically,
I can't-
right?
Well, yeah, like critically and audience.
Because
like,
audience-wise, they probably, I would imagine they'd get more revenue by having that tie.
yeah,
They're gonna get more butts and seats by having that tie-in.
I think there's something where my original thought, and I still don't know if this is actually true or not, that around this time before The Rock had sort of lost favor in the public's eye a little bit,
Yeah.
he was making a lot of movies that were just like, oh yeah, I'll go see them, but I don't know if they were like wildly financially successful, but like Skyscraper and Rampage and stuff like that, and I could look up the box office, but like there's a lot of things that are just like, oh, I'll see that, it's probably fun, like it's mindless, whatever. I think Statham has always been a little, I know this might sound crazy given like some of the Statham movies that we have covered for the podcast already, but I think Statham has always been a little bit pickier, and so I think if you're like, oh, well, he's in it, it might be better. I think Ross is right that like putting the name on there got more people to see it, but also added the baggage of, well, now it has to relate or compete or tie in or whatever.
Yeah.
I also think, the same thing we've been saying, if there's 3 of these, 4 of these, 5 of these, like the pressure on this is off, but like it as a one-off outlier, it's just so weird. Like not bad weird, it's just like they did one, it did okay, it didn't do bad, and they're just like...
It made money. And we had fun. We had fun, and like... Generally, like people don't say that they hate this movie,
right.
But yeah, I don't have a correct answer for what I asked either. I was just like thinking about it. Like I don't know which way to imagine it would go, but it was just like a weird thought that I had as I was watching today.
It was an easy movie to pop into for someone who hasn't watched, like kept up with the series and know the storylines, even if you don't know the characters. It's like if you watch like a reality show you haven't really seen before.
Yeah.
By the end of the episode, you're like, I'm caught up. Like, I get what they're doing with The Rock's character.
There's enough of the recap and enough of the next episode happening on both sides that you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So now, Ross, we have some questions about the Fast and Furious. They're not really about the Fast and Furious. They have nothing to do with the characters or the plots or the movies. They are just things that in our 15th time through these movies, we have come up with as questions to get conversation starters. No wrong answers, because there are probably no right answers, because the writers wrote some lines down and didn't explain them, and they were probably never going to explain them, but we want to know. So are you ready for some very hard-hitting, but also not at all serious questions about...
Yeah, sure.
About, quote-unquote, about the Fast and Furious. Okay. In the first movie, a movie you've seen, you might remember, you might not. You probably don't, because it's an uneventful scene. Brian and Mia, after a barbecue, are in the kitchen doing dishes. Vince, the sort of muscly tough guy, comes in and bullies Brian. He's hitting on Mia or whatever, and he's drunk. And Mia says, hey, Vince, what's the name of that restaurant you want to bring me to? You know, the red candles, the wood tables, the picadillo, the food all over the place. And he says, cha-cha-cha. And she says, yeah, okay, Brian, you can take me there. So, Ross, if we say to you, this is such a blast. Thank you for joining the podcast. Next time you're in New Jersey, next time you're in Connecticut, whatever, we want to take you to this restaurant. It's so good. You're going to love it. There's these wood tables. There's these red candles. There's this picadillo. There's food all over the place. It's the best restaurant. When we describe a restaurant as having food all over the place, what do you picture?
I picture like someone who's done an edible and making a mess at a restaurant.
Okay. Nice. They're just a messy eater.
Yeah, they're just the messy. They're having more than they probably should, and it didn't stay on their plate.
So now, in a movie you have not seen, Furious 7, which is the one that like made the most money because that's the one where Paul Walker died. People went to see him. Farewell. There's a scene where Roman, who you might remember from the second movie, Tyrese, talks about all the things he has done for the family, including taking a plane out of the sky. And Brian says to him, the only thing I've ever seen you take down is No Knees Denise at prom. And he says, really, Brian? You can do that right now? And everyone laughs. We don't really know what no knees means. It seems like a negative thing because Brian...
We've never heard of Denise before in the franchise.
We don't know what
either,
Denise.
So.
We know it's probably an insult because it's a joke. It's a punchline at Roman's expense. But if you hear a person being described as no knees Denise, no knees Joe, no knees Ross, what is that? What do you picture for that?
I feel like it's some roundabout way of making an oral sex joke of someone getting down on their knees, but I can't explain why I think that, but that's what comes to mind.
That's the most common thing. It's either, but also people say either she does it all the time or she never does. Like she never gets on her knees or she's worn her knees away.
Prudy, and we've gotten
Oh wow, Whore Madonna both going on.
yeah.
So now in that same movie, this has nothing to do with the franchise, even less to do with the franchise than those first two, which had nothing to do with the franchise already. There is a scene in which Roman, aforementioned Tyrese, has to distract a room full of strangers and he starts singing the birthday song. He just, happy birthday to you. So now, Ross, if the three of us are pulling a heist and Joe and I have to go in the other room, have to steal a part from a car, and we need you to distract the room the way that only Ross Benish can, sing a song a cappella style that is either so good it's captivating or so bad it's car wreck that they can't take their eyes off of, ears off of, whatever. What song are you singing to give us 3 to 5 minutes?
Fuck the World by Insane Clown Posse.
Oh,
perfect.
Low culture.
Perfect.
Whoop whoop.
Ross, just because people get really excited about it, I need to tell you that Joey has compiled a playlist of everybody's choices that has ever answered that question on this podcast, and it is a wild time.
Okay, well, I hope that's a good addition.
No,
to
so
it.
you added a great, nice touch. You added a nice piece because we've gotten everything. Like the rainbow of color that we get painted in that question is beautiful.
Ross, it's a terrible playlist. You do not want to listen to the playlist. It has no rhythm. It has
There's no flow. Yeah.
No flow.
It's literally every genre. It's like, there's like 50 songs or 60 songs or whatever it is, and like no two are similar. So if you want the worst playlist in history, look on Spotify.
I'm glad I didn't make a repeat.
No. ICP
we
has
rarely
come up.
got repeats.
ICP has come up on the show because one of our biggest supporters and earliest listeners is a huge current Juggalo, I don't know.
Former, maybe.
I guess once a Juggalo, always a Juggalo, right? But like, we've spent a lot of time.
Hootie
hoo, whoop whoop, ninja, etc. All right, the final question before we kick off and talk about Hobbs and Shaw specifically is the oops, we should have covered that already lap. In between the Fast and Furious movies, we were watching movies that we should have covered, either movies starring an actor from the franchise, made by a director from the franchise, or just a thematically similar thing. Is there a movie, not a Fast and Furious movie, that you're like, hey, that's actually kind of Fast and Furious, or people who love Fast and Furious movies would probably love this movie that might not be the biggest movie or most obvious thing or whatever, just sort of like a movie that you might love or really dig or think that we might like that reminds you of Fast and Furious?
Would you ever see Death Race 2000? It's like an old movie from the 70s.
We may or may not be covering that movie next lap or in a future lap, or I can't tell what the theme is for next lap, but I've seen it. I'm very excited for Joe to see it.
I have not. Yeah.
So that's a movie I think Fast and Furious fans might be into.
Perfect. Excellent suggestion,
Because
obviously.
then also the remake of that, which is just called Death Race, starred, I think, Statham.
That sounds right. I don't know if I saw the remake. I saw the one with like Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I don't think people like the remake, but the original is wonderful. So, excellent choice.
Well, thank you.
All right, so Hobbs and Shaw, your first time seeing it. Right off the bat, what did you think of a movie that you have not seen in a franchise in like 13 years?
It was out there. Like it was like an X-Files episode, This guy's like a cyborg. It seems like he can't be killed, really. And then there's like a conspiracy and a virus. So yeah, it felt like X-Files with cars is what it felt like.
Now, are you an X-Files fan?
Yeah, I like the X-Files. So that's not a diss.
So no.
Joey loves the X-Files.
It's a very high compliment. I'd never thought about this as an X-Files episode. It is kind of the X-Files, like it's the techie, sci-fi, weirdness, unexplained in more ways than one. Fast and Furious. Okay. Maybe I like Hobbs and Shaw more now. I don't know.
He sprung you on one quote. He just X-Files it for you.
Look, they're all perfect movies. I'm not saying that this is a bad movie, but I might like it more just because it is the Hobbs and Shaw, or the X-Files Fast and Furious.
Yeah, that's the difference. You have two meathead guys instead of Mulder and Scully, so that's where it really gets different. But if you replace that part, the backstory, I think could be one of their investigations.
We are also, side note here, just talking about X-Files and later X-Files. Margaret and I are watching The Sopranos show, as you know, and we just got to season 2 where the guy who runs Ramsey Outdoor is like in his terrible gambling debts. And he's an agent in later X-Files. I'm just like, I know where this is going, and this is so bad. And like she's cringing as he like loses bet after bet. I'm like, oh, it's not going to get better. Like it gets
worse.
Only getting worse. But shout out to Robert Patrick, T2, the Terminator 1000. Okay. Also, shout out to Idris Elba, who was just on Chicken Shop Date. I don't know if either of you watched Chicken Shop Date on YouTube.
I've never watched it.
It's
no.
wonderful. It's delightful. And he was on there promoting, not really promoting Head of State, which is out this week on Prime, but just kind of promoting music and DJing and all the, endeavors that Idris Elba is involved in. I don't know.
Good for him.
Ross, did you find the four mains here? We have The Rock as Hobbs, Jason Statham as Deckard, Idris Elba as Brixton.
Yes.
And then Vanessa Kirby as Hattie. What did you think of the core four in this movie? Because two of them were in no other movies, and Hobbs and Shaw, sort of as they got added later in the franchise, kind of became breakout stars. What did you think of them as a sort of a center of an action, maybe X-Files movie here that you watched?
It worked. It's kind of like Seinfeld, where it's, three guys and like the one strong female character. Like, she's kind of would be the Elaine, but they all seem fine at their roles, and their roles also were, especially for the men. I'm not as familiar with her work. Very similar to stuff they had done before. Like Idris Elba, plays the badass. Like that's just kind of what he usually does. He plays a bad guy more often than not. The Rock is usually like the muscle-bound, hero. Statham's the action star who saves the day too. So they were typecast a little bit, but like that's what they've been doing successfully for many years, and it all fit.
Now, Joe, do you like this movie even more because he called it the Seinfeld of the Fast and Furious?
I did, and I have a note that, like, took very few notes this time watching this movie again, but one of the notes I had was that I think that this movie greatly benefits from a super trimmed down cast. But I'm a huge Seinfeld fan, Ross. So like you X-Files Joey and you Seinfelded me. You're in good.
Gonna run out of 90 shows here by the end of the episode.
No, wait. So you ingratiated yourself great to us for sure.
Does that make Ryan Reynolds the Newman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Like, he's got to be there, but he's also pretty annoying, but also people do like him for inexplicable reasons.
Is Kevin Hart the black guy that George pretends to be friends with?
You can't just say the black guy. Like, he can't be the one black guy.
Seinfeld didn't have
the whole
any,
episode. And that was the whole point of that episode with George, when he like shows up to their house to try to watch movies. Remember this?
Yeah, maybe.
Because he
Okay.
Yeah.
I will allow the intentional racism.
It was not about him as much as it was about laughing when George had to go find a black person as a friend. Yeah.
So one other thing, Joe, you mentioned, and Ross, I want to get your take on this, because there's a lot early on, and I've been thinking about Mission Impossible a lot lately because of the Final Reckoning and whether or not like that's effective in what it's doing. But there's something, Joe, you said, the benefits from a slimmed down cast. I think a thing that this movie also does well that we don't really get a ton of is opening with an action scene that is tied to the plot. So, like, the first movie opens with them hijacking the truck, which is basically setting up the plot, right? Like, it's an action scene, but also...
Yes.
4, I went through every movie. 4 has the oil heist, which isn't really plot. It's kind of, but not really.
It's like Los Bandoleros plot, if anything.
7 opens up with Deckard in the hospital, and that's, like, setting up, like, this is a guy, a formidable badass.
That's true, yeah.
And then 9 is the flashback, and it's Jack Toretto. And it's, like, kind of, but not really. So, like, it's a thing that the main movies don't really do that often, but here, from the rip, we're introduced to Hattie, we're introduced to Brixton, and it's like, this is the plot that's going on. You're learning it all right now, like, literally says bad guy.
Bad guy.
Stealing the virus. Good girl trying to stop him, on the run from the cops. There's a lot of plot here. Ross, I'm wondering if the plot, because again, this is all new to us too, like, these are not characters we knew before the movie, was the amount of plot that they dump early on, was it conveyed well, do you think? Because I think it kind of does it better than most other Fast and Furious movies, but I'm curious, what do you think as just sort of a non-biased third party?
Like, in the first, 15 minutes, I'm kind of confused, like, what everyone's intentions are and where this is all going.
Fair.
And I also am coming in with no background on it, but right. I'm just like, well, what's the point of this? Why are they doing this? Why? They do a good job of walking you through eventually. It's not like, one of the Matrix sequels or something. It's not like the hardest movie in the world to follow. But the first 15, 20 minutes, I was a little lost. but I got around to it within, by the end of the first hour, I was good.
Joe, what do you think of the way that they dump plot? Because I was comparing it again to Final Reckoning, where like there's just so much explanation of like what this is and what they're going to have to do, and it's just like just show us action at a certain point. You know what I mean?
I think that it bodes well for both a summer movie blockbuster and just like an action film in general to put me on the moving train and read me the signs that we see along the way. You know what I mean? Like I enjoy it. I can understand that like it might be a little bit confusing, and like now we've seen this movie how many fucking times, so like whatever, but I like the pacing of starting out on a high like that. And I think it sets it up well because, yeah, if you start out slow and you're just like doing all this exposition, it feels like you're on a conveyor belt to get you to the next action piece, right?
Because even the stuff early on that we have, I think, grown a little tired of over, watching this 10 or 12 or 15 times or whatever. Probably not fit. No, I think 14 times is what I've logged in Letterboxd, which is bananas because this movie came out 6 years ago.
Yes.
The Ryan Reynolds, Rob Delaney stuff.
Have you heard the most recent ones? Can we just take a side tangent on that? Did you hear that he's trying to change his name to Rob Mack because he got
yes, well, that's not him, but yes. But Ryan Reynolds has totally fucked up Rob McElhenney to be Rob Mack. Yeah, very annoying. Yeah. I haven't noted that, just that there's not only Ryan Reynoldsization of films, but also of people too. Yes, we can talk about that if we want. But even that, like Ryan Reynolds and Rob Delaney talking about like how they have the right guy for the job or whatever, like it's setting up the movie in an effective way to someone like Ross who doesn't know these guys, who doesn't, there's a lot going on, but I feel when it's a little hacky and we're a little tired of Ryan Reynolds doing the Ryan Reynolds thing and playing the one character he plays, in terms of setting up the action and being like, this is a fresh start, you can understand this, I think it does it really well. It's just like, you know what? With fresh eyes, it's actually pretty impressive.
It does get your attention right away. What you don't want to do with an action movie is start off talking about the taxation of trade routes and just rambling on and on about that. So...
Well, if you want to go back on 1999, John will tell you all about why midichlorians are like the most important thing that you can possibly imagine. And one time he no shade, a little shade to John, but one time he drove me to Fenway from his house, and the entire like 55-minute car ride was him explaining why the prequels are good. Actually, I was just like, please, can we not? I didn't really ask the question. I think you asked the question and you answered the question, but there is a thing, and I'm trying to figure out like questions that we can like big topics that we've been mulling over, especially as the franchise goes on. But there's been a shift, Ross, in terms of the types of plots and the types of bad guys to be more tech and more like world domination. That again here, Etion is this organization that like creates superhumans and wants to have a virus that can blah, 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 blah. Like, what do you think in this movie and just sort of in movies in general? Like, do you like the like shift toward tech as the bad guy, or do you long for like the 80s like mastermind guy with big muscles, or just like German guy who hijacks a building or something?
The Russians, yeah.
I don't mind the tech as a bad guy. That's why I brought up G.I. Joe though before, because it feels like the type of villain that you would have in a G.I. Joe series, like just like this weird super soldier thing going on. At some point, it does become a little cliche when everyone's doing it. But I don't mind it in this case. Where it can get annoying is when like every sci-fi movie does it. Like like when you have like new Star Trek movies do it in ways that like the original Star Trek series would not have. Yep. That annoys me a little bit. But when it's a franchise exploring that option for the like first time for them,
it is, yeah. The cyborg thing. We have one and only cyborg in Fast and Furious, and it's Brixton.
Yeah, so I don't mind it as much there then, and you mentioned like the stock types from like the 80s or 90s. When people watch this type of movie 20 years from now and talk about this era, that'll be a type of guy that everyone's familiar with. Like like the 2020s tech villain guy. Like that'll be a thing, and it'll be recognizable.
The Elon Muskification of
yeah,
everything. Yeah. Well, do you have?
Well, he's sad today. So.
Yeah. Well, he might get deported.
It started out as Iron Man, and then it goes to this.
Unrelated to Fast and Furious, but just as you're talking about like other franchises, do you have a favorite like franchise that has like a handful of films? Like, is there either an action or otherwise movie franchise that you are particularly fond of?
That is a good question. I mean, it's cliche. I love Star Wars. They have more than a handful of movies. And I don't love every single movie, but like, that's a franchise that I'm really into. And if it has to be more finite, I like the original like trilogy of the Ninja Turtles, even the really shitty third one where they go to like ancient Japan.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I did that. I did that for Third Time's a Charm with Mike. That was
I
actually one
forgot
of the
that was
films
even a
we
movie.
covered.
Okay.
Yeah, the Japanese time travel one hits really quick there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I the what's funny about that movie?
By the way, that's back in theaters. By the way, it's coming out this.
The third
it's
one?
the like 30th. No, the first one
Okay.
is coming back to
Okay.
theaters in August. So if you're interested and you like those, you have the option to see it.
Well, let me know when Ooze comes back.
Like when like Paramount Plus or even other streaming services that have the rights to these movies over the years, they'll always make the first two movies available, and like that third one, it's like, oh, you got to go pay $4 on Amazon. We don't even want to put that on the streaming service to promote that it's there.
These movies, for the most part, are always Fast and Furious movies. I'm talking about are almost always on like TBS or TNT, but like
That's how
they
I saw
always
Tokyo Drift. Like it was
kind of
like
bounce around. Yeah, they're always
Yeah.
streaming somewhere, especially like on like
USA.
Christmas Day or something. It's just like you can put on a TV if you still have cable and find one of these somewhere, or on a plane, or just wherever. Like it's always somewhere.
on the couch all day back when I used to watch linear TV, and it was on. That was,
Yeah.
you know, I can't imagine doing that now. Just flipping through channels, finding a
Oh,
movie
I
that's
still
already
do.
going.
I love it.
What did you think of the humor in this movie, and did you laugh at all?
Hmm.
You can be honest.
I'm trying to think if there's. I don't think I laughed. I'm trying to remember if there's any moment.
Because I would say, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is definitely trying to be the funny Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah, especially when Ryan Reynolds is there.
Yeah, and Kevin Hart, right? Like, yeah, they have the like formula for this to be the funny one.
Oh, you know, I did laugh. I can't remember what Kevin Hart said some dumb shit on that plane that I think I giggled once or twice. That was probably the only time I
Clanging
laughed.
and banging.
3 alphas.
Because there is a thing where, so they add Hobbs in the fifth movie. He is a bad guy. He's not a bad guy. He's a cop who's trying to take down the family. So we see him as a bad guy, and then he recruits the family to help him in 6 and 7 or whatever, and going on there. Statham joins as the villain in 7, avenging his brother from the previous movie. So they both are late to the franchise. And then in 8, when Vin Diesel's character Dom, who's not in this movie, is off doing a different thing, they sort of have this like will they won't they kind of bromance where I think our guess is that they were trying to see, will this work as a spin-off franchise film? And so there's this like real like they hate each other and they say like mean shit to each other, and then like it's also like so crazy that it's funny. But also I noticed them, I don't remember if we've talked about this line before. There's things that like lines they cross where it's like that's not even like Hobbs says hearing Shaw's voice is like dragging his balls across shattered glass. And I'm just like, such a specific insult that like isn't even like mean. Just like why do you know what that feels like?
But also that feels like a Dwayne the Rock Johnson improvisation. But I'm like, but bro, you cut wrestling promos where you said like some of like the greatest shit
I
ever.
know.
So is it like, did you run it all out during the wrestling promo to like wind up with balls through glass? Like, is that like, was that the bottom of the list and you just had it out there or what?
You know, those types of comebacks, I think guys are better at doing them when they're in their 20s and 30s. He's been doing this a long time. And
You think it's a young man's
yeah,
game?
it's
You
like
think-
songwriting. Yeah, I think it's a young man's game.
Well, you
You're
think
like
about
50 and just not as funny.
you think about like all these actors are 50, but they're all playing like at most 40. They're all like, no, we're still in our prime. It's like, well, okay.
He's been around a long time.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Ross. Like maybe like, you know, like when your life gets cushy, like, you know, rappers, right? Like
Yeah.
when your life gets cushy, like the what is the content, and like your brain changes a little.
Yeah, he's like
So,
a
yeah, maybe,
billionaire now, you know?
Yeah, so like, yeah, he's like balls through glass. That's the funniest shit I've ever heard. You're like, not really, but
There is also a thing earlier, and this is not necessarily a joke that the characters tell, but a joke that the movie tries to do, where he and his daughter are out to breakfast before Ryan Reynolds shows up, and the food is being delivered to the table. And I understand that like a waitress might not know what the other waitress is carrying, but the first waitress offers him like the short stack of pancakes. He goes, no, not for me. And then the other woman puts down like the stack of 15 pancakes. It's like, well, you probably know there's someone in this restaurant who just ordered 15 pancakes and a pound of bacon and whatever. Why would you offer the little stack of pancakes?
when the largest man in the world is sitting in your restaurant.
And it's like that kind of thing where it's just like, isn't that funny that he's on his cheat day? It's like, well, what frustrates me, I think, is that these guys have been really funny.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
in things. And the characters have been funny in the franchise. And, like, Statham especially is a very funny actor. And then what they're doing here, all the Game of Thrones stuff just dates itself.
The Game
so
of Thrones stuff, God,
hard.
I wish we could get like a remake of this film where they just like ADR over the Game of Thrones jokes and puts anything else in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really, really need it to like just go away because it timestamps it so hard every time we watch this.
At least update it to House of the Dragon.
What did you think about the Game of Thrones jokes?
You know,
Ross?
I didn't ever get into Game of Thrones, so the jokes didn't really mean anything to me. Even though there were a lot of them.
Yeah, right? But you noticed that there was
Yes,
a lot
I did
of
notice there was a lot of them.
Because, like, one would be fine, but there's, like, 3 or 4, and you're like, God damn, did you guys just all watch Game of Thrones on set or something? Like, what the hell happened here? It must have been, right?
Something else I didn't know where they were going with is it's like they keep alluding that, like, The Rock is going to try to bone his sister, but then it doesn't really happen. And they fight about it still. I don't know if they're setting that up for the second or third of these movies if they ever get to it, but it felt like they were like foreshadowing something with no resolution.
The funniest part about this, Ross, is that largely in this franchise, The Rock's character has been asexual the whole time.
He has a daughter. We do not know anything about her mother, where she came from.
He's never with a woman.
There is, in the 8th movie, there is an entire crowd, literal soccer crowd of moms lusting over him for being the hot soccer coach. But he's just like, oh yeah, a lot of moms came out today. Like the joke is almost, he's not into it. So then here, where he's like, oh well, or Hattie's like, I better kiss you in case the world ends tomorrow. But then like the movie ends and she's got her arm around her brother and Hobbs, and it's just like, what's going on here?
So
Like,
maybe he's not even into this beautiful woman. He just wants to like fuck with them because he talks about like how she's gonna climb this mountain of a man and makes all these
that
comments.
might be it.
That might be the best take we've ever heard, to
Okay.
be honest. Like, yeah, maybe that's what it is. He's just using Hattie as ammo.
He will like spite
piss
bang
off
her
Shaw.
to piss off her brother.
I would have done it.
Yeah, I know you would have.
I'm not above that. Just say.
Because I guess what would piss off... Because like, there's also the back and forth of like, oh, like Mike Oxmall, the American, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like, I know that most people are kind of... Americans are done with accents, but they're in Europe, and they I noticed that they gave Hattie an Australian passport. It's like, just make her British, maybe.
I think it'd be harder to fake
Maybe.
a British passport through the British airport.
'Cause she's got
is
an
what
Australian
my
passport.
logic is.
Deckard's got a Swiss passport, and then Hobbs has an American passport.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense, but I'm just like, it feels like that would be like, that doesn't really sound like an Australian accent. But also, it doesn't matter, because this movie is not about
Doesn't
reality.
matter. Yeah, exactly. And even in airports, like, who's to say you weren't a refugee to Australia, Joey? Right? Your passport doesn't have to match your accent.
Shout out to Lisa, our resident Australian. Not
Oh, that's true.
not
Yeah,
really
shout out to
our
Lisa.
Australian expert, ex-Australian.
Yeah.
There's another thing that, like, Ross, you won't know because it just hasn't crossed over, but, like, thinking about, like, how this could tie in, it really feels inevitable watching this time. Like, Etion and Cypher feels like it has to, like, link up in some way because her whole, like, innate, like, accountability, and then his, like, I need a shock to the system. It's just like, well, you just have, like, vague goals. Like, they're both, like, they're perfect for each other. But then, also mysteries like, who's the voice of Etion? Who's the head of Etion? Like, we don't know. We're never going to know. And, like, it's frustrating that, like, it feels like this movie really wants to set up things that, like, could pay off, could cross over, and then just don't. And, you know, I feel like I'm a
But we've
broken
seen
record.
that 50 times.
I don't know.
In the video game and all kinds of shit. But between movies,
Shout out to
we
Andy.
see them just drop shit for no reason.
Do different like writers or producers get attached to the like next project, and that's why this happens?
Let's give you a small breakdown.
Okay.
So you have the first 2 movies, and then at 3, Justin Lin comes in. He does 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Then he leaves for 7.
He wants to do 7, but schedule won't allow, and so they bring in James Wan.
Yeah, so James Wan gets 7. Then you have 8. Then Justin Lin, everybody's like, come back. And he's like, okay, he comes back and does 9.
Well, so there's 8 has a different director. Hobbs and Shaw has a different director. He comes back for 9.
Yeah, so everybody's like all excited. He does 9. He's like, I'm setting it up. We're going to finish this out. I'm going to do 9, 10, whatever.
It's going to be a trilogy
and
to close it out 9, 10, 11.
They're on the set of 10 for like a week and a half. And Vin Diesel posts this video like, aren't you stoked that we're here? And he's like, kinda. And then immediately leaves, and the movie shuts down for like a month.
week into production.
Justin Lin was like running it for a little bit, and like that was an arc that like generally people like. And then there's other creative things that people do like as well, because 7's like where Paul Walker dies in real life. And then like, you know, people kind of feel weirder about the later ones for different reasons. But so people do bring in different creative director things. Like even like 2 is wildly different because it's the John Singleton one, right? So like, yeah, but like it's not as big as other fandoms being like kind of beholden to like their writer or director or something like that. I don't hear that beyond us. I don't.
The
think,
interesting
like
thing here is that the writer of this movie is the same guy who wrote 3 through 8. So like he came over from the main franchise, wrote this. Our theory, sort of general kind of consensus, that Vin, because he's not involved in this, and this was sort of successful, got pissed at everyone involved in this and sort of not blacklisted, but just like removed people from the equation. So like this guy who wrote almost every movie up to this date, no longer involved in the franchise, probably because Vin was upset. So,
but this is all because of, at the time, Vin Diesel and The Rock are in a real life spat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of their. So yeah, to just give you the historical context. Sorry for taking you on a wild ride to kind of.
It's all good.
Try to explain.
I was just
that.
Trying to think of why there would be these disconnects between films, and just having different people seem like the.
Do you remember that Vin Diesel versus The Rock like public feud? Do you remember any of that? Like
I don't
maybe
remember
kayfabe,
that.
maybe not.
No, I don't. I guess I sat that one out.
Oh, it was a big deal that on the 8th movie, they were both, that The Rock was talking about how unprofessional Vin Diesel was and like calling him a candy ass and blah, blah, blah. And then after the fact, like years later, it turns out that maybe The Rock was the one who was causing all the problems. But then also there's a chance that like none of that was real. This was all staged because like he left the franchise and came back to the franchise.
For a minute, we thought I was pitching a theory that this was movie promo, that they were just doing wrestling promo to just generate buzz, right? Like rapper beef.
And we still don't know.
They should have had Vin go on WrestleMania and just settle it there.
That would have been awesome. That would have been the perfect way to do this, to be honest with you. It would have been absolutely glorious if Vin would have come out and wrestled The Rock.
And you could do a huge movie tie-in to it.
Yeah. Wow. You're solving all kinds of problems today, bud.
Not getting to world hunger, but we're getting through this.
Well, this is, some would say more important.
Okay. Depends. Everyone's got different priorities.
What'd you think of the I Heart Cops forehead tattoo in this movie? You like that? You dig that?
I Heart Cops. Walk me through where that was.
Very early on.
The very beginning.
When they're like
very
showing their might early on, and the Hobbs goes to that like tattoo parlor, and he's like flirting with the girl.
And what you call a champagne problem.
And then he just
I remember the champagne problem.
He tattoos around the same time.
It's right
the
around
Rock
there,
tattoos a guy, and the forehead just says I Heart Cops, which like in 2019 already had like a loaded connotation. Today has an even more loaded connotation. Like that guy's still like probably out there like with that tattoo on his forehead. You know what I mean? But
maybe he had to like have that turned into something else. Like I remember when Pam Anderson got divorced from Tommy Lee, she turned her Tommy tattoo into Mommy because she has children.
Yeah.
So like I don't know what you do with the Cops tattoo, but maybe you can ink it up to do something else, because tattoo removal that's a big process.
I'm gonna tell a joke pretty much for the resident historian Mike Manzi, but in a lot of the tattoo forums, whenever somebody's like, I got this tattoo, I don't like it, like what should I do, the common answer is sick ass panther, because it's like big and black, right? So like it covers a lot, like it's a really easy cover up. So like everybody, like as soon as somebody's like I don't like any tattoo, they're just like sick ass panther.
Yeah, this guy could just have a sick ass panther on his forehead now.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking he probably did.
Ross, were there parts of this movie that you loved? Like, what would you say if you had to pick a favorite moment or a favorite character or a favorite action set piece? Like, what was your favorite part of Hobbs and Shaw?
It's toward the end when they're at Samoa. All of the Rock's brothers are they're all like connecting their cars to try to like fuck up Idris Elba's helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that scene was pretty cool. I was just seeing how insane it would get. Like, how long is this train of cars gonna go? Each time they added a car, I was like, this is awesome. Add another car. Have another Samoan dude drive his rusty ass car to the top, and let's have 100 cars. Let's just do it. So I was into that scene.
That would be pretty fun. I never thought about adding more cars, but that is also a good
Yeah,
idea.
if I was the director, I'd be like, this scene has a problem. Not enough cars.
More cowbell, but just cars.
Yeah, need a dozen cars. I'm still a 12-year-old in some ways.
I was wondering, because if it does feel like I do love the Samoa stuff, and I think the Samoa stuff is a really good way to end the movie. It does feel like sort of a different movie. And I was thinking about, Joe, like Fast and Furious 6, where there's like the tank scene and the runway scene. It's like two different action set pieces in one.
Yes.
I wonder if this is going to be ever two different movies, or if they were just like, oh, well, like there was going to be like, you know, the Shaw movie and then the Hobbs movie or whatever. Then they made the one together. But like I like knowing, because it feels to a certain extent like they wrap things up in Shaw's neck of the woods. They're like, okay, now we got to go back to our home turf or whatever, my home turf, and take care of business there. Like I think it works well, but I do wonder if this was ever two different ideas sort of smashed together.
No, I think that at this point in the Fast and Furious trajectory, even you saying it, that we've come to a time where we expect like 3 set pieces,
So
or at least
six
2
allowed
big.
it. 6 made it okay for this to happen.
I think so. I think that it has now built it into part of the formula that, like, I don't think that this is unintentional, that they didn't just, like, tag this onto the end of this. I think that it was intentional going into it, that we're going to have, like, a London set piece, a Samoa set piece, and we're going to have both because it's both of them in the movie.
Got it. Okay, that's fair. Now, Ross, flip side of that coin, what was your least favorite? I'm sure that you hated at least one thing in this movie. What did you hate about Hobbs and Shaw? Your least favorite part of the movie?
So I would want to know more about like the dude or the organization controlling Idris Elba. Like it just they're so all powerful and behind all this nefariousness, but they don't really develop any of those characters. You just kind of get like a voice, and you don't know what they're like. What's the point of doing all this stuff? Well, what's the end game?
Right.
Do they have any ambitions or motivations? And that's just kind of not developed.
It's not. It's a big complaint that we still have to this day, because this is the only time we see that company, Etion. We thought that eventually this was, like, as Joey had said a little bit ago, that this was going to be the overarching bad guy for the main franchise, and they completely abandoned it. It's nowhere to be found. We don't know anything else about them, why they exist. You got as much information as we got for you.
So they're the most, powerful criminal organization in the world. But don't worry about them after this. Like, they're just in the background.
Pretty much.
Well, the even worse thing in that sort of regard is that there is a third Shaw brother. So there's Deckard, Jason Statham, Hattie, and Vanessa Kirby. There's a third Shaw, Owen, not in this movie. And then Hattie, the coolest character in this movie, in my opinion, has not crossed over into the main franchise at all.
Although Shaw and the mother, Shaw's mom, are mainstays in the main franchise.
So it's just very weird how selective they are in terms of, like, bringing things to here, but not necessarily bringing things back, but bringing some things back, or, like, it just...
Like, we haven't even mentioned Hattie. Like, she's not even a throwaway line in films after they came out when Jason Statham's, like, talking about his siblings, which he does. Or to his mom. Like, they don't even say, like, where's Hattie
But also,
at?
and I think we might have said this before, that, like, Dom never mentioned he had another brother until the 9th movie. Where they're like, oh, well, there's family, right? So, like...
Also true, yeah.
Played by John Cena, so...
I also thought of another thing that I didn't like. So the post-credits, it was like... The movie ends, there were so many, like, little cutscenes after that I was watching on Prime Video, because that's where it's streaming right now for free. Like, twice Prime Video tried to give me, like, your next movie's starting in 20 seconds, and like, I have to, like, click out of that, and it was almost hard to watch the cutscenes. And then one of them was just, like, Ryan Reynolds being silly. I was like, I'm going to this effort just to watch this. Like, I didn't need more Ryan Reynolds at the end.
It is weird, and I have the same thing, because I have the digital copies that I've redeemed onto whatever, and, like, I just watch those on Prime as well, so they're always there for me. And the same thing happens, even though I'm watching the copy that I quote-unquote own or whatever. It's like, hey, do you want to watch Serenity? It's like, no, not yet. Like, I want to, like, watch the rest of this. Because especially as the movie ends, and then it blends exactly into the credits, then there's, like, scenes playing, And then there's the credit scenes. It's like, well, this is cool. Just like signify that, we're still watching. I'm still here.
Yeah, the streaming services have to get better at that. I bet there's a lot, especially if this was one of the Lord of the Rings movies, they have like a million of those, especially in like the extended version. Fans are just gonna get. They're not even gonna see it because you have to have your hand on the remote. And who does that when you're watching a movie?
I mean, I still remember Joe and I also did a podcast about Ryan Gosling's movies, and when we watched Blue Valentine, which is one of Gosling's saddest movies, and like it just has like this devastating ending. As soon as it ended on Netflix, it's like, we think you might like this. I'm just like, no, let me cry over the credits like a human being instead of smashing me into like to all the boys I've loved before or whatever was so encouraging that I watched next. So I don't know. It's not just Prime; it is all of them. Ross, you have other notes, other thoughts you want to share about Hobbs and Shaw? We have a couple games to play to end the podcast, but anything else you want to say about this movie?
No, nothing else.
Would you watch another one? I have a question. Ross, would you watch another one of these?
Yeah.
Not a Hobbs and Shaw, but just like a different Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, I would. I would probably will end up watching one because someone will put it on is probably what'll happen. I don't seek it out, but I would totally be into it. And I could see this being really fun in theaters, like where the franchise is going. It looks like it'd be awesome in theaters.
Where do you live? You don't have to be specific, but are you East Coast, you West Coast?
Hudson Valley, New York.
Oh, well, so we go to the West Nyack
as
movie
a family
theater right there to see all these movies when they come out because it's halfway between me and Joe. So if you want to see a real Fast and Furious theater experience,
you're welcome.
I've
join,
been to
brother.
the Nyack Mall, right?
Yep, that's where
Palisades
we go.
Mall.
It's like a nice in between for us. So
yeah.
So you're
the
right there.
Palisades Mall.
If you want to jump into like the probably final movie of the franchise in 2 years, maybe if it comes out, and not having seen anything else between now and then,
you're formally invited.
I appreciate that. Hey, this isn't Fast and Furious related, but you guys ever check out mystery bins when you're at that mall? So it's like on the first floor where JCPenney used to be.
Okay.
It's crazy. It's a liquidation business. It almost looks like half the stuff was stolen. I've never been into a store like this.
Oh, no.
What's it called?
Mystery bins. And there's like teenagers working. Half the stuff is like broken or defective, but it's like it's marked super cheap. Stuff is just thrown all over the place. There's like no rhyme or reason.
It's like a guy buying those like Amazon return boxes and then like putting them into a
Some of them
storefront.
even have a cardboard box of what product they were in, and it's like mailed to someone. Like there's like postage stamps. Like if they just like took their mail.
Insane.
It's crazy.
So I'm looking on. There's an Instagram for Mystery Bins NY. They sell couches and clothes and electronics and everything. They apparently have different pricing. Maybe they get stuff in on Saturday. So Saturday it's $15, Sunday it's $12, then 8, 6, 4, 2. If you go on a Friday, it's only $1 to go on Fridays.
It's a wild. So next time you're there, just walk around there.
Thank you.
It's a
If it
bizarre
still
experience.
exists, yeah.
If it's still there.
Well, they have a Instagram story today. Unbeatable daily deals, $6 Tuesdays. Treat yourself to $6 Amazon essentials. They have picture just like iPads. They have nano steamers.
Dude, they sell over-the-counter drugs there. Like you can get like really old Tylenol and stuff like that. Which I wouldn't buy it there, but they sell it there.
I appreciate this tangent so much. Thank you very much for this.
I'm just because it's not a chain. It's just a store, and they have 6,000 followers on Instagram. And when you search on Google for mystery bins, the first picture that comes up is JCPenney. So just like we don't even have like a name. I don't have a sign. It's just like,
in the JCPenney from the outside. If you park by the outside, they just put up like black like tape or trash bags over the windows, like where the JCPenney storefront was. Like they didn't rip out any of the stuff. And if you go in the store, there's still like the old makeup counter, but they just have like products on it.
Oh, so in r/Syracuse, the Syracuse subreddit, someone 28 days ago, so the beginning of June, posted that Mystery Bins is opening on July 1st, so today as we're recording, in a former JCPenney space. They say this is believed their third location. They essentially sell Amazon returns at a very heavily discounted price.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's what I guessed.
Wow.
I've seen people like buy boxes of this shit and be like, they're like gambling on what dumb return shit they got in a $500 box,
That's
right?
crazy.
You know? So that's what they're doing. Crazy.
You said the first movie in most franchises is the best one. Sort of universally, the best movie in this franchise is considered to be the fifth one, Fast Five. So if you want to watch the best movie and just a good action movie, you also don't really need to know anything leading up to it because it sort of rehashes things at the beginning. And it's also the introduction of The Rock as Hobbs. So if you want to watch another one before our family date,
arguably the best
in 2
one,
years,
okay. 5 is
Fast
good.
5.
All right.
So now, with that all said, are you ready to find out which Fast and Furious character you are?
Yeah, sure.
So when the podcast started, we found a personality quiz online that was fine, but we could do better. So we made our own BuzzFeed J14 style. There are 7 multiple choice questions, 6 answers per question, no wrong answers. You can describe your answer if you want, you can explain yourself, or you can just let the mystery be. 7 questions, 6 answers to find out which Fast and Furious character you are. Are you ready?
Yep.
Question number 1. How fast are you? NASCAR, roller coaster, Lamborghini Murcielago, Toyota Prius, Vespa, or Razor scooter?
Prius.
Question number 2. You know what's coming. How furious are you? The Hulk, Kylo Ren, Christian Bale on that one movie set that one time, Mel Gibson, Charlie Brown, or Jack McBrayer?
I'm going to go with the Christian Bale one.
We're having a barbecue. How are you helping? Are you on the grill? Saying grace? Kicking back with a beer? Babysitting? Being the entertainment? Or sneaking a snack?
At the grill.
You've got time to kill. What are you doing? Are you grabbing a bite? Working on your car? Hanging with friends? Drinking a beer? Working out? Or doing some work on your computer?
Working on the computer.
Describe your wedding. I'm never getting married. It's just me and my partner. It's us and our families. It's a backyard country affair. Everyone I know is there. I don't remember.
Everyone was. Well, so I actually ended up having 3 weddings to one woman. So I'm going to go.
3 weddings.
Yeah.
As someone planning one wedding, I know how expensive one wedding is. I can't even imagine how 3 weddings.
The first wedding was just like
courthouse.
Yeah, just signing papers. We had a photographer there. That cost absolutely nothing. Then the second wedding, because she's from New York, we had like a fancy New York wedding with like a reasonable sized guest list. Like probably like 125 are invited or so. And then the third wedding is where I'm from in Nebraska. We just had a reception. Everything that was like half the price of the New York wedding, but we had like. Oh God, how many people attended? We probably invited like 400 some, and probably like 300 something came.
Damn, huge.
Wow. So literally everyone I know is there. Is maybe...
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why you laughed. Makes sense, bud.
All right, Ross, you just won the lottery. Congratulations. You can pay off all those wedding debts. What are you buying? My own garage, a private plane, I'm gambling it all away, my childhood home, a fleet of cars, or a new life?
Was the first one garage?
Yeah, just basically a big space you can use for whatever you want.
Yeah, I think I could use some storage. I could there's some paddle boards in there and all my kids shit.
Cool. Yeah, workshop.
What is your drink of choice? Belgian ale, Corona, something fruity, water, whatever's cheapest, or just Joe's going to the bar. Just gotta make one of whatever you're having.
Whatever's cheapest.
Okay.
That's actually what I say at a bar. If it's a bar, I say just give me your cheapest beer. It's usually
Really?
PBR or High Life. Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
You were close to somebody. I want to see here if there's someone we've ever had before. Hold on. Oh yeah, we did have them. Okay. You were almost Rico and Tego, who are sort of very background characters that we had. Alex Jacobs from Racer Trash was Rico and Tego, but you are instead someone we have had before, but a really solid choice. You are Tej Parker, aka Chris Ludacris Bridges from the second movie. You've got the heart of the racer, the mind of a hacker, and are equally as fascinated by the latest tech and how to improve on it as a classic engine. You don't shy away from the tough jobs, but you know you don't have anything to prove, so you're just as happy making sure your family has the things they need to accomplish their goals. Other people look at the big picture, but your strength is figuring out the details to make that big picture possible, and you drive like the wind, blows.
I'm into that because I love the Ludacris songs on Too Fast, Too Furious. Those
Your
rule.
second most likely one was Dinkley, the Kevin Hart character
from this movie.
So you were almost
only from this
Dinkley.
movie.
who I don't know if we've ever had Oh, no, we've had one Dinkley. Reed Vanier was Dinkley. But, like, these are, like, rarefied air. Like, so they're...
Yeah, we get a lot of, like, the same main characters because it's obviously weighted to them a little bit more.
Yeah.
So getting a deeper cut is interesting.
I like that I'm two different black guys.
One other question for you on the same sort of topic. Doesn't have to be from this movie. It can be any from any of the first three, or you can also just say you don't really have one. You have a favorite character in any of the 4 Fast and Furious movies you've seen?
This is the most recent one, so that sticks out. But just it's cliche, but like, you know, Paul Walker, like in those first movies, like he's the guy, you know. So I'd go with
answer.
it. Yeah,
that's a great answer. Ross, thank you so much for joining us to talk about The Fast and the Furious presents : Hobbs and Shaw. You have a book, 1999, the year low culture conquered America. Please talk a little bit about that, what it covers, where people can buy it, what you want people to know about it, and also where you can be found online.
Sure thing. Well, what you can know about my book is that it covers all the ways that trashy entertainment from the late 90s, such as Jerry Springer, Insane Clown Posse, early online porn, and the Attitude Era, shape our world today in imperceptible ways. It's not necessarily a nostalgic look, but if you're into that stuff, it will appeal to you. And you can find me just at my website, rossbenish.com. I'm occasionally on Twitter, but I haven't been very active on social media the past few months because I've just been hanging out with my young kids all the time.
Better place
That's
to
awesome,
be.
brother.
It is.
Place to be.
Yes, that is true.
Smart.
Joe, our next episode is another Life in the Fast Lane. We're finally going to get Noodle Grandma, which I am, unless there's a whole minute of him puttering in that bedroom, which I don't think there is.
Dying for Noodle Grandma.
And also, big news, Vin Diesel back on Instagram, posting up a storm.
I seen him coming back with a fucking... He forgave us. He accepted my apology. He's back on Instagram.
Ross,
there was a period, yeah,
in between. So we sort of have like a 3-thing or 4-thing cycle. We do Fast and Furious movie, sort of news and recap, and just talking about life, pit stop, the news, and whatever. And so in those off episodes, we always review Vin Diesel's Instagram because he is wild on Instagram.
It's an unhinged place,
and
highly recommend it.
We were basically talking about how like sort of unhinged he has been, and he stopped posting. We're like, did he hear this? Is he worried that we're making fun of him
now?
And then since we recorded 4 days
ago, I apologized heavily.
He posted like 7 things. So to the grid, not just stories, to the grid. So he's back with a vengeance, baby.
You know, I just watched Pitch Black for the first time this week.
It's pretty good.
Oh, nice, cool.
So I'm going. I did like it. I don't think I'm gonna like watch all the Riddick movies, but it was a fun.
They're not bad.
Yeah,
this is another. Much like the Fast and the Furious, if it's on Saturday on television, let one rip for a minute. You know what I mean?
Well, so the thing to know about Vin Diesel is that these are the movies, the Fast and Furious movies are the ones that people love him in the most. Riddick movies are the ones that he loves the most.
He loves the most.
And then there's a movie called The Last Witch Hunter, which is based on his D&D character. So it's also got a very special place in his heart.
But he just generally just does the Fast and the Furious movie so he can do the side quests that he wants, which are Riddick
like he literally came back to this franchise because Universal gave him the rights to the Riddick franchise in exchange for him returning for 4.
Oh man.
So he cares about those way more than
if you care about Vin,
Well,
and I hope that you do, you will watch every Riddick movie at attention. Diligently.
That's his baby.
Those are his films.
I love that he's like treating the Fast movies like his day job to do his like art project of Riddick. That's funny.
It's precisely what it is, brother. Yep.
It is. It's as insane as it sounds. Like, oh, do you want to be in a movie where like you will make probably more than $100 million when all's said and done for each one? Yeah, but only if you give me the rights to this movie that like nobody other than me cares
this
about.
This weird sci-fi franchise that like only I care about.
Only for Vin.
And I was even reading just the synopsis of the other ones because I was like, Pitch Black, that was fun. And then the other ones, I was just like, this kind of just sounds like the same shit I just watched.
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
It's all about Furians and the planet of Furia,
and someone's always trying to get him.
Yeah.
He's always hanging from chains.
There's a lot of this. Yeah.
I want to give a special shout out to our patrons, Alex Ellen and Justin Kleiman and Brian Rodriguez of Fatherhood,
Ooh.
Wes Hampton, Jerry Robinson, Dan the Duke, Hayden Renato DiDonato, Michael McGann, Lane Middleton, Lindsay Lewandowski, Nate Milton of the Kings of Sport, Jason Rainey, Tom Price, Mike Galler, Josh Buckley of Whole Lot of Wolves, Michael Moser, Christian Larson, Tara Newan, Aaron Willows, Natalie Absolute, Randy Carter, Josh Goularm, Alex Walsh, Jack Haley, and Jessica Collins, a.k.a. Montez. Thank you all for supporting the $5 a month level or above. If you want to get your name on that list, toofast2forever.com. And for all things Too Fast, Too Forever, go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/toofast2forever, or at toofast2forever on some of the socials. Email us, family@cageclub.me. We will read on the next episode, where we also talk about Noodle Grandma and Vin's Instagram. Check out our Patreon page at toofast2forever.com and our store at cageclub.me/shop. And come back next week for Life in the Fast Lane, number 51, Area 51, X-Files, beginning and ending the episode.
Bookmarked.
I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too.
And that was Ross Benish of 1999, the year low culture conquered America, and we will tell you all about it
when we see you again.